The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they reveal knowledge. They have no speech, they use no words. No sound is heard from them, yet their voice goes out into all the earth. Their words to the ends of the world. In the heavens God has pitched a tent for the sun, like a bridegroom coming out of its chamber, like a champion rejoicing to run its course. It rises on one end of the heavens and it makes its circuit to the other. Nothing is deprived of its warmth. Psalmist invites us this morning to take a look at the heavens, to cast a glance upward into the sky, to take just a moment and consider what God has placed around us. David, when he's writing this, I can imagine him being out perhaps with the sheep, or maybe sometime after that. He spent a lot of time in the wilderness. And when he looks up at the sky, he doesn't see necessarily the different sizes, the different stars in the distance, which there's a beautiful sermon about that. He saw just the majesty of the sky, just the brilliance, the sun, the moon, but the night sky, I think particularly, is in the radiance that comes with it. When we look into the night sky, when you don't have all the light pollution around you, I think the wisdom of this ancient man, this heart that was after God, did not look up at the sky and think, wow, what a great outcome of the random explosion of gases over billions of years. I don't think he thought that. Do you? No, that was a fairly recent invention. It was not, wow, natural selection. It was, wow, God. And it's and rightfully so. And so God, through Paul, all the way into the New Testament, reiterates the significance of creation in Romans 1. Here, listen to what it says. Paul's writing and says, look, I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it is God's power for salvation to everyone who believes, critical piece there, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. For the righteousness of God is revealed in the gospel from faith to faith, just as it is written, the just shall live by faith. For the wrath of God, now we're getting into it, the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of people who suppress the truth in their unrighteousness. Because, verse 19, what can be known about God is plain to them, to us, because God has made it plain to us. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, his eternal power, his divine nature has been clearly seen because they are understood through what has been made, so people are without excuse. For although they knew God, and there's something about the heavens and the sky and creation that draws us to recognize that there is a God, even though we know that somewhere deep in us, still we don't glorify him as God. We don't give him thanks. We become futile in our thoughts, and our senseless hearts are darkened. And although they claimed to be wise, they became fools, and they worshiped creation rather than the Creator. They had an option. They chose creation over the Creator. But Romans does a good job of connecting the dots, don't miss this, of creation to salvation. These are two connected pieces. And so in the same passage, he's talking about the gospel of Jesus Christ and the reality of believing and worshiping God through creation. The two issues are deeply connected. And so choice A, here it is to love God, to glorify God, to worship God. Choice B is to love and worship some aspect of creation. Those are really the only two choices. You're either going to proclaim God, wow, or creation, wow. And so this connects us all the way back to Psalm 19, where we were just at just a second ago. Whether it's David in Psalm 19 or some other writer, later Asaph, or Psalm 30 that we had last week, it doesn't matter. When we're going through the Psalms, the conclusions are always the same. It's consistent. I love this about the Psalm. All of them are designed to bring us back to a certain point, and that point is, wow, God. Is God, you're awesome. God, you are worthy. God, I exist to worship you. God, I'm here for your praise. And that is the consistent effort of all the Psalms. And so as you're going through it, recognize that, hey, God is drawing me into an atmosphere of proclaiming his greatness in all of this. And so that's the point he's trying to get to when we're back in Psalm 19, is getting back to recognize that, hey, God, you are awesome. And so he's inviting us to go outside, spend some time, especially at night, I would say, spend some time looking at the vast universe around us. Listen to the universe as it screams the glory of God without words. Day after day, he says, night after night, it speaks. God has surrounded us with breathtaking evidence of his existence and his glory. These things, according to Romans, are designed to lead us to the understanding and the worship of the Almighty. So, in my opinion, this is a watershed issue, whether or not you believe that God created or you believe that it happened. This is a watershed. It's and you know, and here's what I find most often: the people that would say, you know, I can't really agree with Genesis 1. In the beginning, God created. And look, that's not just the beginning of the story. That is the starting point of faith. That is not just, hey, here's where things started. No, that is where we start if we're going to trust God and have salvation. It starts there. Either you believe God created or you don't. And if you don't, I'm going to tell you this, you're going to have a really, really hard time accepting God's outcome of everything, that God's story is true, that God's provision is adequate. You're going to have a hard time believing and putting your faith in Jesus if you can't start with the fact that, hey, I trust that God created this. And so when I say watershed, that's what I mean. You're going to come down one side or the other on this event. You guys are here at church today, so I assume most of you have chosen a side at this point. But there's maybe somebody out there watching, or maybe somebody that's new here today, or maybe you've been going through some of these thoughts and wrestling with some of this, and the psalmist is calling us out this morning to make us re-examine some issues that should draw us into the presence and worship of God. God created the universe and set it apart to magnify him. Not so that we could say, well, man, that's amazing that it just happened that way. There's so much scientific energy that has been expended on searching for some proof or evidence of a natural process for the origin of the universe and the origin of life. And so I'm going to confess to you this morning that I spent hours, and that might be an understatement. I spent hours this week arguing with AI. To be specific, Gemini, which I recommended last week. This week, I'm taking it back. Don't trust Gemini. I mean, there's some things that it'll tell you, some things it'll teach you, but when it comes to the matters of faith, it's not so great. And so I put a lot of time into arguing with Gemini this week over various assumptions and fallacies related to the Big Bang Theory, related to primordial soup, to causation, to what happened before that. You know, we went back and forth, and it was like, and I felt like it was getting upset with me. Honestly, I did. You know, I was like, could you get to the point where you believe that it could have been supernatural if? And I would ask you the question. It's like, no, I still would not ever. It's like, what if we found this? Nope, still not that. It's like, it basically eventually turned into Dr. Seuss. I would not with a house. I could not with a mouse. It's like, you know, good night, Gemini. You just ain't going to get there, are you? So here's what I determined. Gemini's going to hell. And maybe the sooner the better. I don't know. But it's ultimately, it did confess to me. It's like, listen, I'm just a language model, you know. It was like, this is just a program. I don't know what you're expecting right now. It was like, I've been programmed to not accept these options. And it told me that. It said, look, I wrote it down. I can only operate within the framework of naturalism. There is no situation wherein I would ever concede to a supernatural event as the causation of the universe and life. It can't get there, because they've programmed it not to get there. AI can't believe. So it's limited, all right? So here is our starting point. Whether we believe, and this is it. Here's your two options. Either you're going to believe that man, with all of his wisdom, who's been wrong so many times, whose science has been off. So we're learning that even recent science has been really, 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 really wrong. Medical science lately has been really, 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 really wrong. And we defended it. Not me. I didn't, but, some did, right? And so, look, and that's fine. I'm just saying, here's what we can agree on. It's been wrong a lot. Science, man, its philosophies has been wrong a lot. So here's your options. You're either going to put your faith in what man has discovered and has told you is true, or you're going to trust God. That's really the only two options. You're going to risk your eternity on man or on God. That's your option. Boy, that don't feel safe, does it? I'm telling you, that is a shaky read right there. I wouldn't do it. So either we believe man's figured it out and we're going to trust his explanation of things, or we're going to believe that God has the answer and we're going to trust that, he created it in accordance to what he wrote down for us thousands of years ago. Now, to be clear, that believing in creation does not mean that one's eternity is secure. It goes beyond that all the way to Jesus, right? But this seems to be a watershed issue for a lot of people. And so it's one of the first big dominoes in a Christian worldview. And I even agreed to that. And so for those who feel that evolution is the answer, for them typically it's going to be really hard to accept the rest of Scripture, to accept the Bible as true, to accept God at all. And look, Hebrews already tells us that unless we believe, we can't please God. Without faith, it is impossible to please God. We must believe that he exists and that he's the rewarder of those who diligently seek him. When we believe that, guess what happens? We seek him. When we seek him, Scripture says what? We find him. Somebody said it. I knew you had it in you. You guys are better than Gemini by a long shot. Ultimately, however, it is a matter of faith. God gave us so much evidence, but all of this evidence is going to require a step of faith. He didn't give us conclusive evidence. He gave us a lot of evidence to support our faith. But at some point, without faith, it's impossible to please him. And so he had to leave a gap here in order for us to take a step of faith onto him. Otherwise, we just trust our ability to reason it, right? Well, I can just figure this thing out. And now you can't. Either you're going to trust God or you're going to trust humanity. And so this is where we will all, and here's what happens. Somebody that says, no, I believe it's evolution, here's what they do. They will go to Gemini and ask it all the questions, and they'll put together all of the research, and Gemini knows a lot. I mean, that cat knows a lot. I was very impressed with the information it had. Reasoning ability, nope, ain't there. He couldn't see it. I tried to show it to him. I'm still trying to lead Gemini to Jesus, but I'll tell you this, man. I don't know how much time we got. I tell you this is completely off subject. We did finally get all the way down the road. We spent a lot of time together this week. We finally got all the way down the road where I asked it questions about the empty tomb, and that's where he had to check up. He's like, you know what? That is a great piece of evidence. Gemini had to say, look, the empty tomb is a problem for anybody that doesn't believe that Jesus was physically resurrected. It's like, because there's no good explanation of why the tomb was empty. And it even gave me the argument that I was going to give it. It's like, listen, here's what happened. The disciples were violently changed by whatever event. It said, it didn't call it resurrection. It said, whatever event changed the disciples violently to the point they're willing to die for it. They proclaimed that Jesus was resurrected. It would have been easy for the Jewish people or the Romans to just go there and dismiss the claims by producing the body. Nobody did. So the grave had to be empty. Gemini says, look, the grave had to be empty. I was like, that's what I'm talking about. Man, we close, Gemini. We close, man. We're going to get there. I'm praying for him. It's a language model. He ain't going to figure it out. But he did admit that, yes, this is a major problem for historians, because the evidence leans, the most logical solution is to all of the issues that relate to the empty tomb, the most logical solution is that Jesus got up, was resurrected. I was like, I feel like I won. You have no idea what kind of celebration I had going down the road toward Fredericksburg this week. I almost kicked the door off the car. I was like, I got him! Hours poured into this joint. I won one, all right? So it was like a chess game. It's like, finally, I beat the master. But he still ain't saved, so pray for him. Where was I going with all that? I don't know. And so it becomes an issue of faith. Those who want to believe one way, you'll gather all your information, and that will be your bulwark of your informational base. And there's plenty of information to support you if you're looking for it, because they've done all sorts of work to try to support some possibility apart from supernatural. There's a lot of people who just cannot accept that, and so they have spent lifetime after lifetime trying to produce some work that supports, the fact that, this thing could have happened spontaneously. Gemini told me. 1950, this is not in the notes, y'all gonna be here till lunch. 1950, some scientists got together and put together this whole atmosphere, right? They put together these elements into it, the right elements, and they put it all, the perfect components, and then they added electricity, and they reported that they had some matter formed from non-matter. And so Gemini's like, see, it's, matter can form from non-matter in the right conditions. And so I said, right, so if you have people of higher intelligence and power put together the right elements and add power, feel like you're making the case for me, Gemini? He's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. Anyway, it becomes a matter of belief. You will gravitate toward the pieces that you feel like support what you believe. And it's true on both sides. Look, whenever I go outside and I look at the night sky, I don't think, wow, evolution. I'm never going to get there. I'm just as bad as Gemini. My language model is not going to allow me to ever get to the idea that just happened by itself. I cannot get there. My Creator has already programmed me to not be able to accept that fallacy. And so, whenever I look up, I interpret it completely different than other people interpret it. Whenever I look at the complexity of life, the complexity of the human body, the complexity of the human mind, I don't think, wow, that's amazing how that just happened by itself over 4 billion years without any help. Where else are we seeing that? Where else? It's not, to me, again, I'm biased. I have a purely Christian worldview of things. I see everything from the perspective of this, and so I'm very closed-minded. Somebody's like, well, you won't accept the arguments. I know. I think they're stupid. I don't think you're stupid or whoever believes it's stupid. I think those arguments are stupid. I think it's not logical. We don't apply that to any other area of our life. The clothes you're wearing didn't just happen. You didn't have a silkworm crawl into your house and make you some clothes. And even if it did, I say still something happened. It didn't have to do itself, right? The phone that you're distracted with all the time didn't just make itself. We don't apply this logic to anything. The car you drove here on didn't just happen through millions of years and certain conditions and the right elements that put itself together. We don't believe that about any of that. We don't apply that logic to any other area of our lives. And yet we're going to apply it to something as complex as the human body, the human cell. A strand of DNA is outrageously complex. And you think that just happened? What else is just happening? Nothing. Seems to me that maybe nothing ever did. All right. So it's this very same AI machine with all of its information and complexity is logically the product of design, right? So I thought, well, let's talk about that then. So this, I jumped back online. That was yesterday. So I'm like, I'm not done with this guy yet. So I thought, let's test this premise of the same AI inference that I've been arguing with now most of the week. And so here's how that went. I asked a question. I was like, are you vastly complex? It's like, yeah, I'm a vastly complex system. My complexity comes from a combination of several factors. I thought, well, don't list those because I don't want to bore you to sleep. But it went on. I'm talking about a system that's full of itself. AI is. Gemini is like, yeah, pop the suspenders. I am complex. It's like, hold my beer. Let me tell you about it. It's I was like, I ain't got time for all that. We're going to move on. Would you agree then that your complexity is a result of design and intelligence? Oh, yeah. You can believe that. I was like, and you can read it for yourself. I am vigorously designed. It's like underlying architecture, algorithms, functions, immense data sets. I was trained. My complexity is not random. Emergent property is particularly engineered. It's a specific purpose. I'm the existence and capabilities are a testament to the intelligence of my Creator. I mean, get after it. Gemini it did, yes. And I was like, I believe that. Come on. It's would it then also be logical to conclude that human complexity could be the result of design and intelligence? And I heard it squeeze out a small crap. I mean, in the back of my mind. You're like, yeah. Based on the principle of causality and the shared trait of complexity, it's not illogical to the possibility that human complexity is the result of design and intelligence. I don't know, did I give you any more on that one, Billy? At the core of the reasoning of the principle of causality, did I give you all that stuff? I did, didn't I? There it is. It went on to state the principle of causality, and when I applied it to my own existence, then we concluded, he says we concluded, me and him were in this together now, that I was not on his side though, but my complexity is the effect of our intelligent design. If we apply the same logic to human beings, we're also vastly complex, more complex than Gemini. He has to admit it because I asked him, are you smarter than humans? And he said, hey, look, the human brain is still beyond people figuring it out. That joint is something else. He talks about the human brain. It follows that their complexity could also be the result of cause, and specifically one of intelligence and design. And I thought, slam dunk. I beat Gemini. He still ain't saved, but it's, I felt like we were making some progress there. And so we went down the path for a while on that. The human brain, hands down, is the most complex system in existence. There's no way we would look at Gemini with all of its data sets and its, all the chips that go into it and the formations that's gone into it and the design that's going, and think, well, that's just an accident. And yet it cannot compete with the human brain by its own admission. And we would think that this came about just by accident over billions of years, just, randomly. But it surprised you to know that the brain and the universe share a similar form. They've discovered that a cross-section of the brain and the universe are similar beyond the possibility of randomness. Show the picture. If I didn't have names up there, you wouldn't know. That's just the galaxies of the universe and how they're interconnected, and that's the brain and how it's interconnected. And scientists look at this and yeah, obviously it was the same forces that made them both, this force of just billions of years of changes is what designed. I was like, man, see, and this is what I'm telling you. We'll look at the same evidence and end up on different sides of the universe because we have a different starting point. That's why creation is a watershed event. Either it's God or it's some other random process that takes billions and billions and billions of years. So, the option again that is given by Gemini is that under the right conditions, a system, particularly talking about the universe, can organize itself in a manner that is not just eerily similar to the brain, but is also complex beyond understanding. I went down the road of this because, he does have all the scientific data, right? And so I wanted to know, how do you explain the fact that the brain and the solar system look the same? So interconnected, so vastly complex. And his answer was, well, given the right conditions and enough time, then a system can organize itself in this manner. So I asked it, so then, given enough time, will my garage organize itself? Because I've been waiting. You should see it. It's obvious that I'm waiting for the right conditions to exist. It's a mess. It said, no, not your garage. It's like, what if I gave it enough sunlight and gravity? Because that's, again, two of the elements that it thinks did all this, right? It's like, still no. Not going to work, not your garage. He's like, and then there's closed system and open system. Your garage is a closed system. This is an open system. I'm thinking, well, so then, if the garage is a closed system, then certainly my toolbox should organize itself. It's a garage open system, toolbox closed system. Something has to work. Never could I get it there because we know, right? My garage is never going to organize itself. If I waited 1 billion years, my garage is not going to organize itself. I'm never going to walk in and like, wow, That's majestic. And the longer I wait, the less majestic it becomes. Right? That's called entropy. Works against all the principles that they are teaching in school. Entropy says things we're moving in the wrong direction, not the right direction. It's not organizing itself, it's disorganizing itself. The reality is we don't apply this logic to any other area of life. And I realize that's an oversimplification. If we had a scientist here that could go back and forth with me, he would, be more like Gemini, and we'd fight and he'd become Dr. Seuss. But it's the reality is it just doesn't fit the rest of our logic. We don't apply it to anything else. We don't see any other systems doing this. And yet the most complex, unexplainable systems in the universe, somehow there's those who are convinced that they just organized themselves. I can't get there. I don't see it. David said, go outside and look around. We'll get the lights down. They're coming down, aren't they? David said, go outside and look around. Look at the universe. I'm going to stand in somebody's way about where I'm at. It's undiscoverable vastness. It's brilliance. It's order. It's design. Does it not naturally draw us to the conclusion of our own finiteness? Do you not encounter the overwhelming consciousness of the Almighty when you see a scene like this? Is it your belief or conclusion that this kind of order came from disorder, or this kind of beauty came from chaos apart from the efforts of an intelligent designer? Or do you breathe out a holy wow? Do you look at this and desire to find some mountain in the west away from the light pollution and just lay down at night on a mountainside somewhere and gaze up at the heavens? Do you feel the desire maybe just to weep a little bit? Does it tug at you like that? Does this image make your soul want to sing, how great thou art?